crucial. He withdrew the bill from Parliament, wouldn't even have the guts to bring it into Parliament because I said I wasn't going to vote for it. Now, many people may not know that. Then when the Rudd government got elected, the Rudd government made some changes which I thought were a good move, more humane. I backed those changes. My vote was again crucial on those issues. Now, what I didn't expect was thousands of people to start arriving in Australia. We have a problem. Okay, now, before we start overreacting and saying, what are we going to do, you have to admit we have a problem. First of all, every person that Australia takes that comes through an unauthorised way, we take one less from the front of the queue. These people are waiting. Hold on a second here. When you say there's no queue, there's people waiting for years, for absolute years, and everyone we take by boat, we take one less. And secondly, we are making it even easier for the boat people. Now, I'm proud as an Australian that we should treat people humanely, but I didn't expect the problems of thousands of people coming and actual boats. So we do have to admit that we've got to address this issue. How we need to address it, we have to have a fair income debate without all the decisiveness about it.
All right, I just want to hear from Richard Dawkins. The same debate, essentially, has been going on in the UK, in fact, right across Europe. Your thoughts on hearing it repeated here?
I've been rather moved to hear the very humane statements that have been made. I don't feel I should contribute to this debate. I know nothing about the Australian situation, but I was moved especially by what the Rabbi was saying.
OK, and Patrick McGorry, finally to you. I mean, you seem to be reflecting on the way the conversation is going. I'm just interested on your thoughts.
I think a number of points have come out. Look, it's an upstream problem. You know, it's a massive worldwide problem. When Senator Fielding says, you know, there are large numbers coming, actually in world terms, there are a couple of thousand on Christmas Island. It seems like a lot because there's been an increase. But if you look at it in world terms, Australia itself takes 130,000 people plus into the country every single year. So it hasn't been looked at in a logical way, this issue, because it's been politicised for the last 15 years or so. I just don't think the media, the politicians, the community have really had a logical look at this issue.
I want to just complete this by going back to Julie Bishop. Do you take the view that the Navy should basically tow the boats back to Indonesia?
Well, that was Kevin Rudd's view before the last election.
Is it your view now?
I'm just saying it was Kevin Rudd's view before the election that they should take the boats back.
Please, is it your view?
Thank you. My view is that we should be working with the source countries, the transit countries, to do what we can to stop the boats coming. Now, because it is inhumane to put people on boats where they have a very high risk of drowning. And we've seen it already with 105 people left the northern shores, was it Indonesia or Malaysia? They haven't arrived, haven't been seen since last November.
So briefly, should the boats be stopped and towed back to Indonesia? That was the question. And I'm just wondering whether you actually have a position on that.
Well, obviously, in some circumstances, that might be possible. In other circumstances, it won't be possible. So you'd obviously look at each...
So if you find a boat at sea full of people, are you saying, because that's when it's possible,
it would depend,
are you saying that it should be then towed back?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances. Kevin Rudd rang President Yudhoyono and asked him to send the Indonesian Navy down to collect them and take them to Indonesia. So it depends very much on the circumstances. But my point is, first you must work with the source and transit countries to make sure that we can get rid of this people smuggling trade and process refugees in a much more humane way.
Tony Burke.
The one thing that hasn't been mentioned at all is that people are also fleeing countries. Part of the motivation right at the beginning is someone has a well-founded fear of persecution. And there is no doubt that the situation in Africa, while still intense, is less intense in some parts than it was a few years ago. The number of people leaving Africa has gone down. Similar in parts of the Middle East. And in Sri Lanka, the number of people leaving or who had partially escaped and were waiting has gone up a lot. Now, that puts extra pressure on our region. And I know the opposition don't like talking about the so-called push factors, but the truth is we have a big change. We have a big change in the region, and when you're talking about 90% of people having a well-founded fear of persecution, You need a smart solution, a responsible solution, but it can't be based on a level of cruelty to their mental health once they arrive.
OK, we're talking about once they arrive. What Julie Bishop said earlier was it was the Prime Minister's position prior to the election that boats be towed back to Indonesia. You didn't deny that. That's true, is it?
Yeah, there are times when you can, and there's limits under the international law of the sea when you can. And one of the ways that does effectively have a dent on the people smuggling trade is if a whole lot of people have paid money to the people smuggler and then they arrive back in port. Now, you can achieve that very rarely, because frequently the moment the boat's sighted, it starts to sink.
But the towing back option is still an option, a live option for this government, is that right, from what you're saying?
The theory of it, as what was put by Kevin at the time, is something that has been very rarely possible. There's been times when it's been attempted, but I'm not going to pretend that we're able to do it on every occasion, because what do you then do?
But you would do it, but here's the point, you would do it.
Yeah, no, I've said that, Tony. Yes.
When you could, you would do it.
The answer to that's yes. It's limited by international law of the sea, and it's also limited by what do you do the moment that boat starts to sink. All
right, I'm sorry, I know there's people with their hands up. We're running out of time. We've got time for just one more quick question. It is a web question from Patrick O'Shea in Queensland. Do you wish for, or indeed hope for, an afterlife? So this takes us back to religion, and let's start with Julie Bishop. Do you wish for or hope for an afterlife?
Well, I hope this is not it. I mean, is this it?
There is life after Q&A.
Well, I'm told there's life after politics. So, yeah, obviously that's part of my faith. I hope that there's something beyond what we have on earth. I don't know. I don't think about death that often, actually. And so it's part of my hope that there is something more, but I haven't, formed that in any sense that, I'm going to be up there with angels and that sort of thing. I don't mean that, but I just think that we have this being, humankind. I believe we have a soul, and I would hope that the soul lives on.
Patrick McGorry, do you wish for or hope for an afterlife?
Yeah, I probably agree with Julie. That's my general feeling. I'd like to think that. I think about my family and I think about my parents, and yeah, I'd like to think that.
Jackie?
I think there's more to us than this body. I think we are an essence or a soul and a spirit, and I don't think that when our body dies, that dies as well. What it is, we'll never know, and well, we will know hopefully at some point, but I don't know now. And I think my religion teaches me to live the best possible life that I can here and now, and to do the best I can in the world, and not to focus too much on what comes next, just to do the best I can now.
Very brief answer, Tony Burke.
I reckon it's true, and I reckon Richard's going to love it.
Richard?
Let's be realistic about this. We have brains. It's brains that do the thinking. Our brains are going to decay. That'll be that. But when you say, is this it? How much more do you want? I mean, this is wonderful.
Well, at least another 5 minutes. So you don't wish for an afterlife?
Wouldn't it be incredibly tedious after the first 1,000 years or so?
OK, sadly, we don't have 1,000 years to run the program. We are out of time. 1 hour isn't quite enough to answer all these big questions. Please thank our panellists: Tony Burke, Patrick McGorry, Jackie Ninio, Richard Dawkins, Steve Fielding and Julie Bishop. OK, next week, the battle of the columnists. Outspoken Conservative Miranda Devine, anything but Conservative Catherine Devine, politics lecturer Waleed Ali, Parliamentary Secretary Bill Shorten and Shadow Minister for Health Peter Dutton. So look forward to another fiery discussion next Monday night when we return. Good night.